Start game now. Welcome, retro fans, to another edition of the Notes for Gamer. Recently, I asked Scrooge McDuck to go buy me Star Fox, the classic Super Nintendo game, and what happened was something kind of confusing. You see, Scrooge might be rich, but he's also cheap, so he decided to take the cheap route, and he got me Star Fox for the Atari Video Computer System 2600. Originally a budget title by Mythicon here, and it has nothing to do with the popular Nintendo franchise. And looking at the cover art or box art, very confusing. It has kind of a Star Wars thing going on, and it looks like it was like a mutant spaceship. I've never seen anything quite like this before. But let's go ahead and put Star Fox into our Atari 7800 Pro system and just find out how this Star Fox plays. Let's go to the game. Star Fox was brought to us in 1983 by Mythicon. It is a Defender-style shooter for 1 or 2 players alternating. A friendly robot freighter has gone down on a planet in your quadrant, and it contains a valuable energy crystal called Trimetallicium. If I'm saying that right, who knows? However, there's some enemy drones on their way to take these highly valuable blue energy crystals. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to recover as many crystals as possible while destroying the enemy drones you encounter. Like I said, this is a Defender-style game, so you can continuously move to the right or the left. The energy crystals will appear occasionally on the bottom of your screen. They'll be like a tiny flashing pixel. They're very small, so you have to kind of look carefully for them. One interesting thing about finding these things is they don't just pop out of nowhere, and there is no radar to search them out. Basically what you have to do is pick a direction. If you go for a few seconds and don't see one, go the other direction and you should find it. It'll only appear when you go a certain direction. So if you're flying to the right, you can continuously fly to the right forever and never see it if you were supposed to go to the left. And I also found that typically it goes in the opposite direction. So if you fly to the right, the next one will appear when flying to the left, and so on and so forth. When you do find an energy crystal, you have to go down and touch it. However, this is a lot more difficult than it sounds. First of all, it's in this orange zone at the bottom. When you go into the orange zone, you can no longer move left or right. And this becomes really difficult because whenever you turn your ship, it seems to want to go a quarter of the screen before stopping again. This just is horrendous to control. It's very, very difficult. When you finally get in the zone, you basically have to be dead on. Again, it doesn't matter if the crystal is within your arm's reach. You cannot go to the right or left, so you have to get up and move over, but moving over even a little bit is quite the chore in this game. Once you do pick it up, you can continue on for your search for even more. Now, of course, there are enemies that are going to come at you. Now, these drones will typically shoot at you when you're in the top half of the screen, well, the majority of the screen, but when you're in the bottom orange quadrant where you cannot move to the left or right, they will begin to bomb you, making it even more fun for you. And another interesting aspect is once you hit 2,000 points, the enemy will be replaced with a more difficult enemy. And this enemy is extremely hard. Basically, this enemy for me was a game ender. I usually died shortly after. It didn't matter how many of my 4 lives I still had left over. Once that second enemy came, it was pretty much game over for me in a short period of time. The game does offer you a practice mode and 2 different difficulty levels. On the easiest difficulty level, you can actually crash into the enemies and it won't hurt you, which is kind of cool. On the more difficult one, of course, like most other shooters, if you crash into them, you lose a life. In the game, if you ram an enemy to death, you get 10 points. If you shoot them, you get 100, and if you recover a crystal, you get 200, which if you're going for points, you want to get the crystals, but it might be easier just to shoot 2 enemies in a row than it is to find a crystal and pick it up because they're just that difficult to pick up at times. Now, according to the manual, the reason why you can't move to the left or right when you get into that orange zone is because the crystals have affected the ions in the atmosphere. That's what the manual says. I just say it's bad programming. Either way you cut it. When shooting, you do get a standard laser that basically travels the whole screen, so shooting wasn't as big of a deal, but like I said, once you get to that second enemy, it becomes very, very difficult to hit him. Graphically speaking, this game is not impressive at all. The ship looks okay, but just having a shiny pixel for your crystal is kind of a cop-out, and the enemies really don't look like much at all. They just look like weird black blobs. They almost look like someone just dropped some ink on a piece of paper and said, voila, it's an enemy, and the backgrounds are uninspiring as well. Musically speaking, this game might be the worst game I ever heard. Now, when you shoot your laser, it sounds okay, but when you hear the background noises, they basically sound like your Atari is dying. It sounds like maybe your Atari is frying from the inside, or some electronics are just totally going off, or even like a radio station that's way out of signal. I don't know. It was just terrible, terrible sounds that you'll definitely want to mute. Family-friendly wise, this is a family-friendly game, I would say, except for the same kind of concern I had with Firefly, which is also by Mythicon. It seems that this company, whenever you lose a life, it pauses the game, which is kind of a cool feature, but when it pauses it, it puts a picture of a joystick up there, except to me, it doesn't look like a joystick. It kind of looks like it's giving you the bird, if you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that one kind of catches you off guard just a little bit once you recognize what it is, but I think it was just a misunderstanding. On eBay, the game doesn't show up very much, but it's not a lot when it does. Loose copies were somewhere around the $5 range, maybe $6. And if you wanted to get it with the instruction manual, it may have cost you like $3 more to get it. New copies were, well, there was one new copy that sold. It sold for $34, which was just the same as Firefly did, which I just reviewed in my last episode. So overall, what did I think of Star Fox? Well, go play the Super Nintendo game called Star Fox. It's a whole lot better. This game just is not that much fun. It's just, the sound is so irritating. It is very, very difficult to do the main goal of the game, and that is picking up the crystals. And sometimes the enemies can get very frustrating, especially when on the harder level. Once you cross that 2,000 point mark, forget it. It's game over. The first enemy is kind of easy, but even hitting them is very difficult at times. So overall, just not a fun game. So where am I going to rank it? Well, let's look at the number 15 spot, right where the last Mythicon game I reviewed, Firefly, was, and let's see how it compares to that. You know, there was things about Firefly I liked more as far as the variety of characters, but overall, that was no fun at all, and this one had a little tiny bit of Defender fun, so it's going to bump Firefly down. I would rather play this than Firefly, but not by much, and so this is going to become my new number 15 game. I'm a member of the Retro Junkies Network, so is Ferg of the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast. You can find that on iTunes. He'll be covering this game and some other Mythicon games. Oh my goodness, and you can check that out soon. Thank you guys for giving me a little part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy videos like this, even if the games are bad. Don't forget you can follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Go to either one and search for the No Swear Gamer. So I look forward to seeing you all next time right here on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.